Super Rugby, the best players from the South African conference. I've already done this for the Kiwi conference and the Aussie conference. South African conference, here we go. I've picked a guy from each of the 5 South African teams to be my top guy thus far. It's a bit of a mixture of, I guess to be fair, from the South African guys I've picked, pretty much all more established guys than perhaps I did necessarily with the Kiwis and the Aussies, which is, it's guys pleasing to see. From the guys that remained in South Africa, there's still some top talent there because, as I mentioned with the Aussies and the Kiwis, everybody lost a bunch of talent after the World Cup, so it's really pleasing, especially with the Sharks and the Stormers doing pretty well. Bulls and the Lions are being a bit less so, and then the Jaguares being kind of middling, but still pleasing to see some guys put their hands up. So I'll go through these guys, some of their kind of key stats and whatnot, and then you guys can let me know your thoughts as well. From the Lions, I have gone with Rosko Specman. Now, he is by no means the biggest guy on the field. He's pretty short, doesn't weigh all that much, and you feel like he looks out of place until you see him play, because that guy puts in a proper shift every time he plays, man. I guess the fact that he is a different build from a lot of other guys in his position means he's able to do things. Like his work at the breakdown is probably the largest reason I've picked him, because he is really able to get in there and do some work at the breakdown, which other guys just can't do. Like I said, he looks too small to play, but he always puts in a performance. He's the number 1 man in Super Rugby for pilfers. He almost gets a pilfer every single game, and that's a clean pilfer. That's not just forcing a penalty. So you could argue which one's more important. If you force a penalty, your 10 gets the chance to either kick for sticks or kick the ball out and get a line out. But also you could argue getting a clean pilfer, you are up for counter attack straight away. So yeah, he does both. He forces a penalty kind of every other game, so not as much as he does getting the clean steal. But either way, man, he is nicking the opposition ball quite a lot. His tackle count is 9.5 per game. It's not exceptionally high. It's average. But again, he's not necessarily the guy making that first tackle. He's the second man. He's the one arriving at the breakdown and trying to nick that ball before anyone else gets there. Offensive stats, he's got solid numbers. He's got 3 tries in 6 games, which is pretty damn good. He's got 27 run meters per game, which is alright. 4.3 passes is pretty high for a Lucy. So he's definitely not one-dimensional. And believe it or not, he's even got some line-out wins, even though he's not a very tall man. So, he is a very good player, and it's pleasing to put him on here. From the Bulls, why did I put these in different order from I wrote them? Alright, from the Sharks, I've gone with Kerwin Bosch. Kerwin Bosch. Now, he kind of took over at 10 for the Sharks last year, halfway through when Robert Dupree Jr. started playing second fiddle to Kerwin. So he's been the number 1 guy this season, and he's been really bossing that Sharks team around, man. He leads Super Rugby in points scored with 86 points. How many points do you think the next best guy has got? 70? 60? 50? It's Domingo Miotti with 46. So that's how many of those points and those wins that Kerwin is contributing to with those points that he's gathering. So it's a massive gap, and shows you how crucial Kerwin is to playing. Even if people are sick of seeing him in my dream team, I know a few people say, "Oh, you pick Kerwin every single time." I know. He's attempted 19 penalties and got 16. So yeah, he's had a fair bit of shooting at goal to do with the boot, and he's got a long boot. The next most attempts is 11. So remember, he's attempted 19. So not every team goes for 3, but the Sharks certainly have. His conversion rate isn't as good with 15 from 22. So I think overall he's at 80%. But he's got some good wingers in that team as well, who are scoring on the sidelines and not necessarily making his conversions easy. He's scored a droppy. He got 1 from 1. So again, more points on the board for him. And he is got the biggest boot in Super Rugby. He averages 305 metres per game with that boot. It got to make your forwards' life a lot easier when they are seeing that ball just sail down the field. So, yeah, nothing more frustrating than when you got a guy who's not really chewing off the meters and making you go backwards. So, his other stats, like his running game, it's kind of middle of the road. It's not bad. It's not great. Try assists, that's probably a work on. He's certainly doing everything with the boot. There's still room for improvement on like run meters, line breaks, defenders beaten, but they're okay. They are there. There is one area of his game where he is particularly poor though, and he's been called out on it for at least a couple of years since I've been following him, and it's his tackle. It's pretty poor. His defense. Among fly halves in Super Rugby, he has the lowest tackle efficiency. He's got 35%. So, yeah, a lot of the time the opposition, if going through him, go through him. So that is a weakness. And what may stifle a potential test career, because you've got to be able to defend at least partially well. I've mentioned it before, like you can rejig the team around a player which can't tackle that well, like the Aussies did it with Quade Cooper. But you'd rather not have to. So, yeah. Otherwise, though, I think he's having a pretty phenomenal season. Stormers. I've got a back and a forward. I'm going to go with another forward. I've gone with Stephen Kitshoff. Just wait till you see some of this guy's stats, man. He is ridiculous. I mean, he's a strong scrummager. You've always known that. And if you're going to pick a prop, they need to be a strong scrummager. Everything else is secondary. Be good at the scrum. Everything else is kind of optional. If you got two guys who are good at the scrum, you pick the guy who's got the bells and whistles. But Stephen Kitshoff, he's a strong scrummager. He concedes less than one penalty a game. But it's his all-round game outside his core role, which really is the icing on the cake. Which prop averages the most run meters in Super Rugby? It's Kitshoff. He gets 31 run meters per game, which is like more than Kerwin Bosch gets for the Sharks as a fly half. So there's a lot of running being done by that man. It's more than heaps of the loosies and some of the backs. So he is finding some decent space. He's decent with line breaks. He gets one every other game. Tackle busts 1.2 per game. And for a prop, he is also the turnover master. He's always been pretty good at getting over the ball. He either forces a penalty or a clean pilfer every game or every other game, kind of maybe a game and a bit. So yeah, he's kind of your top prop for that as well. Top prop for runs, top prop for pilfers. Tackle average is 5.8 per game with 0.8 missed, so he'd probably like that a little bit higher. But other than that, man, again, he's another guy who kind of seemingly would rather go for the pilfer than go for the tackle. So he can do a bit of it all. He's even scored a try. So you gotta love him, man. Stephen Kitshoff, one of the best props in the world. From a flashy prop to a flashy back, I have gone with Rosko Specman from the Bulls, and he is the excitement king. He's electric when he's got the ball in hand. He is going to do something exciting. It's pretty much guaranteed. He's the third overall guy for line breaks, and I've mentioned it either in this video or another video. Chase Tiatia from the Hurricanes only played one game where he got 3 line breaks. If you take him off, then you'd have Specman as second. I think Rico Ioane is the only guy who would be above him. So 1.7 line breaks per game. That's how dangerous he is. Or pretty much 2 times a game, he is going to be clear, which is a scary thought because him out in the open field is very dangerous. Tackle busts 2.3 per game, which is okay, but you feel like that's not really what he's about. He's more of an agility guy than necessarily going to bust the tackle with a fend or something. He's top 10 for wingers who offload, and 5 regular passes, normal passes per game also mean he's in the top 10 for passing. So he's not just give me the ball and I'll run down the wing. He's got a bit of distribution about him as well, which you like to think a lot of the wingers would have, because sometimes they get themselves in a break or a semi-break, and it's that one pass that's going to be the difference between scoring a try and not. Some wingers just try to beat the man, and then if they don't do it, the move shuts down. But Specman can distribute as well. He's top 10 for run meters, and he's 4th among wingers, so 79 run meters per game. Also very exciting. If you're getting those many line breaks, it kind of makes sense. The only area of his game you would say is, again, it's the defense. 2.7 tackles per game. Tackle efficiency 66%. It's all right, again, for an outside back. There's plenty of wingers who are similar, but ideally you would like it to be a little bit high. But overall, you feel like as an offensive weapon, he certainly adds a lot to any team that he plays for. And lastly, from the Jaguares, I have gone with Guido Petty. He is still the line-out king in Super Rugby. He wins 5.7 line-outs per game. So he is just aerially, man, one of the top guys. He's 3rd overall, but if you cut out the players who haven't played 3 games, so guys who played 1 or 2, then he'd be up 1 spot. And players who haven't played more than 3 games, he would be 1st. So he's played the proper amount of games. I think was it 4 or 5? 5, I think. And yeah, he is just aerially such a hard man to play. He also nicks at least 0.8, so almost 1 line out from the opposition per game. So he is one of the best at doing that as well. So again, if you cut out the guy who's only played 1 game, he would be the top line out stealer in Super Rugby. He's even like top 10 for run meters for locks. If you're looking though at like the guys from the Jaguares, Crema is probably more of a devastating ball carrier. He can play loosey or lock. I mean, Petty can play loosey or lock as well. But Petty still does have that in this game. Maybe he's a little bit in the shadow of Crema in terms of his running. But he's still top 10 for locks. He's the 2nd lock for tackle busts behind Lukan Salakaia-Loto from the Reds. But remember, Salakaia-Loto spends a lot of time at 6. So it's whether do you count him as a lock or a loosey. But again, Petty, do you count him as lock or a loosey? He mostly plays lock, but I think he's played 1 game with loosey this year. Or was that for Argentina? I can't remember. But he can play 6. He only makes 6 tackles a game. But his tackle efficiency is 94%. So when he makes a tackle, he makes it count. He has even scored a try. He is very much an all-round package player, man. Run meters, lineouts, tries, tackling. He does it all. One of the best locks in World Rugby. But yeah, that's the South African Conference, guys. That wraps it up for the kind of stats breakdown of some of the top players from Super Rugby. You guys can let me know your thoughts on these guys. Which guys would you have also had from these teams? For the Sharks, there's like 5 or 6 other guys that I would be tempted to put here. But his points difference between him and the next best guy was just so extraordinary, I couldn't not put Bosch. So, but yeah. You guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.